We'll call to order the July 11th meeting of the City of Sebastian Planning and Zoning Commission. Roll call, please.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Roth?
Here.
Ms. Cottenberg?
Present.
Mr. Carter?
Present.
Mr. Motti?
Present.
Mr. Kizzelbosch?
Here.
And Mr. Alvarez?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make the announcement that Mr. Reyes, Mr. Simmons, and Mr. Hugan are excused from this night's meeting, and Mr. Motti will be voting as our alternate member. Kind of like the elevator operator who took a vacation and then forgot the route. But I will catch up. Out of here. Approval of the minutes is next. You've all had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting, and I would now ask you for any additions or corrections.
We're fine here.
Hearing none, we'll entertain
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of the June 20th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. Tonight, we have a quasi-judicial hearing on a site plan modification. I will now open that hearing. Have any of the commissioners had any communications with any of the parties involved? If so, please bring them up now. Hearing none, thank you very much. And is our applicant here?
Yes, but before we do, if we could have anyone who wishes to speak on this item to stand and raise your right hand, and I will swear you in.
Thank you.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the information you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
What?
Thank you.
Oh.
Will you please make your presentation?
Yes, it's a quasi-judicial public hearing for a site plan modification of Strunk Funeral Home, additional parking area at 1623 North Central Avenue in a commercial riverfront zoning district.
Okay, if we could have the application make his presentation. The applicant, please.
My name's Todd Smith. I'm the engineer record for the project. What's before the commission tonight is basically the parcel that the old Sebastian Firehouse was on. The Strunk family would like to develop that to utilize the existing driveway that's on US 1 at that parcel, and as well as provide some more parking for the funeral home. So we're proposing 2 parking lots, 15 spaces that would be closer to the building that's going to be paved, and then another 15 spaces along the internal drive aisle that would be overflow grass parking to the driveway that goes out onto US 1. There's no proposed expansion of the building. It's strictly pavement, drive aisle, and parking spaces. All the state drainage permits have been approved and issued. We are still waiting for the DOT driveway permit, which we've received a minor comment letter on, just to disclose to the members. They came back and they wanted an addition of about 15 feet of thermoplastic striping out on US 1, which we've added to their plans. And they wanted to note that the curbing on the existing driveway, because we did reduce the existing driveway a little bit in width, that we would be taking out the old curbing and installing new curbing from the edge of US 1 up to the west property line of the Strunk property. So we've agreed to those conditions and have every expectation within the next week or so the final DOT permit will be issued for the driveway. Other than that, it's a pretty cut and dry project, and I'll stand before you if you have any other questions on the design or where we stand on it.
Thank you. Can the staff add a?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As you have before you, pretty much what the applicant had expressed, it's a modification of the existing property to add 32 new parking spaces and drive aisles along with the requisite landscaping and stormwater management system in the 3 adjacent parcels to the south of the existing funeral home site. Additional considerations that we would like to bring in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission is that additional landscaping has been added to the perimeter of the entire limits of development existing and proposed. Please be aware that since they were not making modifications to the existing site, there wasn't the requirement to do interior landscaping, but we went around the entire perimeter and it came close to bringing them up to code as for the interior and for the existing site. So we're very pleased with the landscape plan that was proposed. It meets the requirements of the Riverfront Overlay District. Due to the existing topographic grades adjacent to US Highway 1, staff is now requiring a sidewalk along US 1, but is requiring new sidewalks, curbing, and catch basin on North Central Avenue as part of the off-site improvements. If you recall, the county just finished installing the gravity sewer lines on North Central, and unfortunately they used that property for mobilization and storage, and they tore up a lot of the roadway, and there was no existing sidewalks, and so we have requested that in line with this new development that they do those repairs along North Central and extend the sidewalk in lieu of the sidewalk on US 1. 3 new parcels are being added to the existing site and should be formally joined through a recorded unity of title. We have found this plan consistent with the comp plan and the land development code, but we are recommending approval. However, we would like it subject to the following conditions: providing the recorded unity of title and receipt of the approved DOT driveway permit project prior to project initiation, and we would like the site plans that went along with it, the applicant just described. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open it up to questions from our committee members.
No, I'm okay. I have no questions.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Roth?
I do. I question the situation of the sidewalk not being required along US 1. I did some research on it, and it does come up to the southern border of the property in front of that plaza, and it does pick up north of the property. I looked at it. I know it's a pretty big drop-off. I'm guessing, in my humble opinion, maybe 3 feet. But I'm thinking long-term for the city, without having a stretch of sidewalk there, it's going to keep developing. And I look at the businesses on both sides, and I look at the hotels on both sides, Captain Alexander's, and there's a couple of others. And I look at, then there's restaurants on the other side. And I know that there's going to be foot traffic, and we're entering into a program of putting up some nice signs along the Riverwalk area, encouraging people to walk. And I think that I'd like to see the sidewalk continue along there. I know it's going to require some fill because it would make a loop for pedestrian traffic going all the way up would be the Indian River Boulevard, and allowing folks then to come back. Actually, it would go all the way up to Jackson Street, I believe, is where there is some sidewalk. Am I correct in that, or is it the one street right before that?
The sidewalk, the existing sidewalk from where North Central Avenue joins US 1, you are correct that there is a sidewalk in front of that one shopping plaza. But then it ends, and there's no sidewalk, and there's a piece of property between that plaza and the Strunk southern border. So there's only a sidewalk in front of that plaza. And then there is no sidewalk all the way up to Davis Street. So we were looking at that circulation pattern, and believe me, we gave it serious consideration. And we felt that getting the foot traffic off of US 1 and encouraging them to go down Central Avenue might be a safer mode. However, we have with the new it's not AT&T, it's Verizon, thank you. The new Verizon site that you all have already reviewed and approved, it's on the corner of Davis and US 1. They will be putting sidewalk in front of their business. So you're right, there's going to be gaps in the sidewalk along US 1 from North Central where it joins US 1 and from Davis. We listened to the applicant, and I'll let the applicant address this also, that it is a pretty big drop, and it would be quite costly to build a wall and to not necessarily fill it, but actually build a barrier wall to make it flat and even and compatible with the topography out there. So in lieu of that, that is why we recommended all the improvements on North Central Avenue. But this is for your consideration, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Mr. Roth, and if you would like the applicant to give their comments.
Well, there's some other empty lots in that area across the street that we have no idea what's going to go there, and this is one of those situations that we have a plan here, and without being able to look into a crystal ball and say we know what's going there, or what's going to go just a little bit north of this project, we don't really know. But on the other hand, you need to lay the groundwork so that if something does, it'll facilitate, pedestrian traffic along there. I have no idea. I know I won't be here in 20 years when Sebastian grows, but it could conceivably happen with our old fishing village concept. It's quite attractive, I'm finding out, with folks that are moving to Sebastian. So I'm hoping it does pan out, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, Todd.
Well, to kind of add to your comment, the big problem is the geometry. It is about a 3-foot drop in that little strip of DOT right-of-way. So it's not just an issue of filling it up, because at some point we have to transition it back. And this is one of the problems when you get into trying to blend into an existing development. We have to be able to match the grades that are on the parking lot up at that western end on the existing facility. So essentially, when we were looking at it, it would be very costly, but we would have to bring the dirt in. We would have to build a sidewalk up with about 3 feet. We'd have to probably put a retaining wall. Not so much at the south end. It gets a little bit better down by the driveway, but once you start getting a little north of driveway, all the way back up to that existing gravity wall that they have there right now.
Correct.
We're going to be in the same boat. And then with the current codes, because of the grades on this lot, I didn't go through the actual design of it, but I know besides the drop-off, If it ends up being more than a 30-inch drop, then we're going to be looking at putting handrails on a sidewalk also for safety reasons. And so when we were looking at all those considerations, we did get with staff on it and just say what our position was and the expenses to go through and put that sidewalk in and permit it through DOT. And it's just a tight little strip of land, especially just south of the gravity wall that's there right now. From there to about 50 feet south, it's at minimum at least a 3-foot drop.
I know, I looked at it, and you're right,
So
it's in the range of 50
again,
feet.
it's just one of those considerations when you try to retrofit an existing development. If this was a standalone and we weren't blending back in with the drive aisles, because part of our traffic circulation is to, actually, we're going to cut some more of that pavement out that's on that existing parking lot to kind of pull that back in a little bit so we could blend. And our traffic circulation loops from the new parking lot that's kind of there in the center back into that existing one. I have to work with those grades that are there. So it does become an issue of, is there alternative pedestrian circulation throughout that neighborhood that would satisfy the board and staff, and does the cost of the design to try to incorporate it at this section warrant its construction? And obviously that decision's up to you.
Yeah, those are big concerns, I understand. And you're absolutely correct. It is in the range of 45 to maybe 50 feet in that area, and it ends kind of parallel with the front of the building, the existing building and that wall. So and I understand also about the railings, because I've seen railings in other areas where there is a drop-off and they have to put the railings up. It's very common, and they're sturdy railings, so I understand the expense. I guess I'm just trying to bring it up so that we can think about it and make an educated decision as to, does it make sense with what we see and feel is the long-range plan for Sebastian? I'll yield to whatever the other commissioners have of thoughts on that.
Any other issues?
No, that was it.
Okay. Mr. Martin?
I'll pass right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. The rest of everything looks fine. It's a good job, but I think DOT gonna sooner or later gonna force us for the pedestrian traffic to do something. And he's right, it's very expensive because a drop, it had to have a safety rails, all those things. And my other small question is, which is erosion concern on this paved parking, the 15 paved parking on the south edge of that. Water runs straight to there, and there is no curb and no flume.
No, there is a
Yeah,
curb.
and it may not show up on the site plan. It might be easier to see on the landscape
I
plan.
don't see any.
C3.
Huh?
It's C3, Mr. Kibosh.
Yeah, we curbed that whole,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking, sheet 3 there.
C3 shows a proposed 6-inch raised concrete curbing, because we did catch that also, that it would just be flowing.
It's not showing on my plans.
Oh, no. Well,
we have installed, yeah, I'm not sure what you're looking at, and maybe Dory can put up the C3 on, but we have installed a 6-inch raised curb along that whole eastern edge of that parking lot to direct.
Erosion already.
No, to direct water into the on-site stormwater tract.
okay, no, good
But
call.
I think city should think about that thing, what to do for pedestrian traffic. If somebody from USA 1 wants to go to this place, funeral home, how they go? I mean, I'm talking about pedestrian traffic, how they go? They have to go back to Central Avenue or walk there. That's the issue there. So we have to think about something what to do. But as far as the grading is concerned, and that is difficult to make a sidewalk till we make a retaining wall or something, you know.
Well, and I so appreciate all these concerns, because I can tell you that Dory and I wrestled with this ourselves, because you all know how important that issue is to us. And so in looking again at the circulation pattern, it was a choice of having this one piece of sidewalk, a gap, and then another one, and then a large gap, and another one on US 1, or potentially complete the entire sidewalk from US 1 on North Central Avenue all the way up to Davis Street. Then again, we have another gap. However, we're working our way towards it, and quite frankly, in looking at that circulation pattern, we thought that perhaps it would be a better plan to get the North Central done in lieu of the US 1. But again, I'm glad that you're all considering it, and we can go back to the drawing board.
That's it.
No questions?
Okay, that leaves it up to me. I am happy with the plan also, except for the sidewalk issue, and thank you for bringing it up, Mr. Roth. As well as thinking of taking a walk, the plan to move the sidewalk away from US 1, that's fine if you're taking a walk. But I myself frequently must go from business to business, and it doesn't make sense for me to start my car. I end up driving twice as far as it would be if I could walk there myself to get from point A to point B. And the only reason that I start my car is because of the gaps in sidewalk. And I think as the city grows, I think that it would be a plus if, as things develop, we do continue to require the extension of sidewalk, just because it makes for a better use of the property, and in the long run is safer, because I'm not the only one who crosses the street to do business on foot. And I think we might see even more of that as more and more businesses fill in. There will be more of that kind of use. So that's the only question, that's the only issue I have with the project. I think it's just fine otherwise.
I'm going to throw out a suggestion that could be a condition of approval. So north of the building, there is still a large space that is owned by the Strunks. It's part of that parcel, and we're going to unify all of this. It's definitely big enough, though, that if it was to get, they could split it off, sell it, they could expand the funeral home. And I don't know if there's some sort of condition that you could put on that when that property gets developed, the sidewalk along this whole piece or something would then be required. I'm not sure if that's a covenant or if that would even be allowed. But I mean, it's not that we want to leave this empty, it's just that I know, we all know that Strunk needs some additional parking, and we're not sure that if we require the sidewalk on US 1 now, I think they may just put the site plan aside if they have to do the sidewalk now, so I'm not sure if we want that.
We are doing the sidewalk.
Yeah, but along US 1, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
We're doing the sidewalk, it's just not along US 1, so.
I was just trying to think ahead on how we could get a sidewalk along US 1 in the future, but
No, I hear you.
without hindering this site plan to allow them to get their additional parking that they do need now.
Thank you. I guess we could call for a motion.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I had one thing buried on page 2, and that was a lighting. I look back, and there's a couple of light poles over by the building, but I don't see any lighting unless there is some halo effect of lighting off of the street lamps in that area for the added parking.
There's lighting down along, it should show up on the landscape plan. There's 4 light poles along the southern edge of the existing parking lot, which is now going to be in the middle, which is all, the north edge of the new center parking lot.
There are 2 light poles.
Yeah, there's actually 4, and I think one of them we're having to take out.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure we proposed just relocating it because it's in that area where we're cutting some of the pavement back.
It's on C3. But what has been proposed is that the existing lighting on the southern boundary of the existing site is those light poles, those lights should be sufficient for the parking lot that's being proposed. Am I correct, Todd?
I'm sorry, what?
That the existing light poles
Right.
in the existing site, right on the edge, the southern edge,
Yes.
are going to be sufficient for the new parking
Yes.
lot? Okay.
Yeah, because the southernmost parking lot, which has the grass spaces, is strictly overflow.
Overflow,
So now those light poles are just in the center of two back-to-back parking lots.
Okay, I found them now. I see them, so I'm comfortable with that.
You know, just one final comment, because I've worked several decades on sidewalk issues, more with the county, and other options, and it's probably not for discussion tonight, but when you deal with a community that has a lot of existing development, existing sites, it's great to have a sidewalk plan and say, okay, everybody has to put in sidewalks, but there's no continuity to it, because the site plans come in individually on little pieces, so you keep getting these fragmented pieces. I'm only speaking from my personal opinion of planning a community. I would much rather see, if a sidewalk's required, but it's going to go to nowhere yet, that the owner either enters into a development agreement on it, or those funds get escrowed into some sort of sidewalk improvement plan, where the city then can design sidewalks. So, the funds come in, and as they accumulate, it's like, okay, let's have an engineer actually design. We're going to, just like water and sewer, sidewalk from this street to that street, and where all those existing considerations can be looked at on parcels that have already developed. And then, of course, you always have some parcels that will all be long gone before a sidewalk goes in. So that's kind of the shortcoming about the whole sidewalk issue. Again, that's maybe a bigger topic for more strategic long-term planning of sidewalks. I'd rather see the funds used.
Yeah, that's where I thought Dory was coming up with an idea on that, and there might be, as you called it, a developmental agreement, and there might even be grant money available, because I know that's happened years ago. I know in one case that it did, that there was some grant money available. So I'd ask our legal counsel if there's such a developmental agreement that could be drafted that would be, how shall I say it, enforceable.
There's other alternatives too. I mean, just speaking about this particular site, if I was truly walking down the US 1 there, the cars flying by at 40, 45 miles an hour, 1 foot off that sidewalk, you still can walk through this site. So when this additional driveway gets built from the existing driveway, it's going to be a nice, smooth, flat transition. If I'm on a bicycle or if I'm walking, I'm going to walk on the property. And maybe the thing is when the property to the north develops, maybe this is a section, again, to solve some of these existing constraints, that, okay, the development of that northern piece would tie in to the internal drive aisle, and maybe a pedestrian easement is granted to the public going through the Strunk property. To me, that has the benefits of getting people a little bit further off of US 1 from the car traffic, and still allows that if somebody does want to walk that section up there, they can walk that section. So I think there's a couple ways that the issue could be improved.
I love this discussion. Can you tell me, staff, is there any easement over the property, or does the private property right come directly to the curb? Is there an easement of any sort?
But not at the moment.
Or easement, what type of
Like a
easement?
pedestrian easement that if somebody was walking down the drive aisle.
No public easement of any kind. The property comes
Across the
right to the
property?
curb.
No, ma'am.
So then it would, in order to get sidewalks in the future, we would be seeking easements over all of the properties that haven't put them in. Is that correct? Am I correct in that, or is
Oh,
that?
no, the sidewalks are placed in the right-of-way, so it would be in the US 1 right-of-way regardless. What we're talking about is a east-west easement from North Central to US 1.
No, that isn't what I was
That's
talking
not what
about.
I was talking about.
Oh, I thought that's what you were talking
Why
about.
do they have to be in the right of way? As long as the public has a pedestrian, we do sections where they, they strictly can't be. You have public easements like for dune walkovers that go to the beach. So I mean,
I was looking at it the other way.
let's say when the northern piece came in, whether it was developed by the Strunks or a separate entity, a condition could be, okay, that a pedestrian easement would be platted or dedicated north-south direction,
Okay.
that you can walk from the southern end of this up to that next section up at Jackson Street. I mean, right now, without the development at the without the northern piece being developed or anything proposed at the time, again, if we try to do anything in this 50-foot segment, it stops, it dead ends, so it still doesn't connect. I think that the timing on this is more apropos that, and it can be a condition of this site plan that even if the Strunks sell the property off to the north, that they disclose that, hey, if you ever develop the property to the north, whether it's them or another owner, that they must provide some means of pedestrian circulation in a north-south direction up at the high end, as close as possible to US 1 or in US 1. It's going to be really difficult to put a piece of sidewalk right at this location on US 1.
Sidewalks are always in a road right way. It's never on a private property, it's on a road right way. So there is a DOT right way space there.
And there is room then?
Yeah.
I guess that was
That's what
more
you
my
asked,
question.
yeah.
That was more my question. Thank you for helping me. Okay, no other questions, no other comments? Seeing no persons from the public here to speak either for or against this, we will move to, see, you've had an opportunity, we'll move to the staff. No?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
One suggestion, I don't know, can we put something in the development agreement, something for when they develop the north property, the sidewalk, something? We put in that thing?
I believe if you wanted that to be a condition of approval, that before land clearing began or something, that there was some sort of agreement in place regarding development of the sidewalk at some point, I'm not sure.
It's owned by Strunk Funeral Home, anyhow, that's property, yeah.
Yeah, or if you wanted to, as thrown out, conditional when the northern property is developed or sold off or something like that, that it would be along the whole property?
Yeah.
Correct. Do a developer's agreement.
I'd ask Attorney Stokes if that is a viable type of condition.
Yeah, some sort of an agreement when that's developed. Absolutely, we would have the ability to do that. That's on this parcel, though, right? That's not what we're dealing with.
All of it, so they're just saying that when this got developed, it was sold off or
Right.
developed, that there would be some sort of agreement that a sidewalk would have to be considered that sidewalk connection for the whole property.
But they're separate parcels right now, right?
No.
It's all one?
Yes.
Okay, then yeah, we could include that if you wanted to.
Hypothetical, if we made a condition, number 3, of a developmental agreement, it would have to have a time frame on it, obviously, that at some point in time, it would sunset and be over and done with, if it wasn't picked up. Or could it go on for perpetuity? And number 2, it would have to cover the entire frontage on US 1 of the property that's currently owned, correct?
As far as the second Pete, that's really more your issue. As far as how long it could last, I mean, that's up to the way we draft it. If we did it, kind of open-ended or in perpetuity, it would be something that we could record, and it would then attach to the land. I would hesitate to put in that it's irrevocable. I think let's say they never develop that and it goes to a future owner and it doesn't get developed for 10 years and they want to come back to the city council and revisit that and have that requirement removed. They should have the ability to do that, and I don't think we want to bind future development with that. But we could put it in place, we could record it, and it would be there until it's not there, until it's either fulfilled or they come back and expressly ask that it be removed. So, we could draft it, literally we could draft it any way we wanted, whatever the recommendation is and whatever the final determination is.
What would be the trigger that would launch that developmental agreement to install the sidewalks?
The site plan?
The development of the property.
So the development of the property that's directly adjacent to the north, which goes up to...
Well, no, the property adjacent to it right now is Verizon, but there's enough property north of the Strunk Funeral Home.
There's a gap in between.
But, no, that's owned by Strunk. That's all one property.
Okay, all right.
And so if they were to split that off to sell it, that would trigger the site plan, a sidewalk, or if Strunk itself expanded their funeral home north onto that property, that could also trigger that they had to do a sidewalk along the whole site.
I understand where this is going, and I think that this is the first time since I've been here that somebody came to us with the plan, with a site plan that did not include a sidewalk, and I guess that's where this is all coming up. And I think because we didn't do it in the past is not a good enough reason to not do it now and in the future. And I think that even saying this, although it is costly and difficult, even this property without a sidewalk will create more of the chicken has to cross the road in order to continue a decent walk along the area. And I find it an unsatisfactory solution to a problem that will remain regardless of whether we put something in there. And I think it's a mistake to do things the old way just because that's the way we always did it. But I could certainly call the question and be in the minority, and that wouldn't bother me either. Okay.
I guess, can I add one other comment?
Yes, you may. You may
Because
certainly.
the board should consider it, whatever way. Because here's the thing with this site. So there's a limit of development. We're expanding this parking lot in the southern piece. So you have the existing facility. So, when it comes to sidewalk issues, the board going to say, okay, they have to retrofit their existing funeral home and the existing parking lot that's there. To me, that's kind of punitive, because you're looking at, here they're coming in with, I don't know the exact footage, but from that southern edge of the existing drive aisle to the south. And the development that's being proposed is limited to that area. So that should be also something I think should be considered.
Yeah, I understand that concept. I also know that because I'm probably a lot older than I look.
Nah, not really.
Not really, no. I know that often, in my experience, there have been existing properties that no longer fit the plans of a developing area, that they stay the way they are until they ask to make some improvements, at which time they need to come up to the new standards, and it's not punitive, it's just the way it is. And I'm not, I really don't want to be punitive, I don't want to hurt anybody's interest, I'm just thinking that as the city continues to grow, it should grow in the best way possible. And if it's impossible, I find that I would accept that. I can accept the impossible. I find it hard to accept what is possible and simply not being done as the easier route. That's all. And I won't say another word about it. Okay.
Well, no, I appreciate your comments. My comments were more about there are a lot of existing properties that propose small little, they want to add 5 by 10 area here, they want to add 4 parking spaces there. If the board's going to say, okay, you're on a collector or arterial, you put a sidewalk in, even though they may be proposing a small expansion over here, that becomes, there's some tertiary effects to that too, because it will sometimes prevent a lot of improvements, because at some point it becomes, because it's one thing when it's associated with somebody trying to expand a business or a building, but with a situation like this, the whole reason that we're actually before you tonight is because this site plan, not this particular one, but this board or the board in 2016, 3 years ago, approved a site plan that had a parking lot, a drive aisle here with no sidewalk. But it was the engineers that designed it. They designed it with an entire underground drainage system. And when it was priced out, the Strunks could not afford it. So that's how we are here we're today, because they came to me and said, is there a more cost-efficient way for us to use this existing driveway that we have and cut the cost of the drainage system? And so we designed this plan reducing the parking and doing a more open type retention area, and hopefully that will.
Your points are valid.
Thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, will someone put together a motion for us?
I'll try it.
Thank you.
I would make a motion that we approve the plan for the new parking lot and development for the property at 1623 North Central Avenue as submitted with 3 conditions. 1, provide a copy of a recorded unity of title for all lots before issuance of the certificate of completion. 2, receipt of approval by FDOT of a driveway permit prior to project initiation and the conditions of FDOT. And 3, establish a developmental agreement to install a sidewalk along the U.S. Property 1 frontage to meet current sidewalk codes to be enacted upon the sale or development of the northern portion of this property.
I second.
Okay, we have well said, Mr. Roth. Yes.
Yeah, he said say on.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Just question, please. We want clarification. You stated upon the sale or development of the northern portion. We may want to just be the development of the northern portion. Am I correct? Because once it's sold, you don't want to force them to put the sidewalk in.
On their half. Yeah, I mean, it's going to get tricky because it's going to be recorded against the parcel if they, and they're going to have a unity of title, right? So they're going to have to if they're gonna sell that off, they would have to sever it
Yes,
to sell it.
or division of lot, depending.
And the development agreement's gonna apply to both halves. So, so then at that point, if the north end gets developed, we have to wait. It's your call. Like I said, we can word it any way you want, but if they sever that property and sell off the north end, that's going to make this development agreement very confusing because it's on a single parcel. It's going to be on a single parcel right now.
I think we know what you want to achieve, but can we word the motion somewhere so that it's a developer's agreement as prepared by city staff and agreed by all parties or something is recorded or something like that?
That's why there was that long pause at the end. I was trying to
You
think
did a
of.
fantastic job, Mr. Roth.
I'm no expert.
Yeah,
and-
we know your intention. We'll massage some language
But
between us.
I think that would be appropriate, that the agreement would be developed by city staff and acceptable to the property owner.
The second agree?
Yes.
Okay, call the question, please.
Mr. Kizzelbosh?
Yes.
Ms. Cottenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes?
Mr. Motti?
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez?
No.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Okay, we have 6 ayes and 1 nay, so it carries.
I'm sorry, Ms. Graham, I'm just going to clarify. It would be five.
You're right. 5 ayes, 1 nay.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, I hope you understand the reason for it and also for the need to put a delay on it, because if nothing ever happens, nothing will ever have to happen with a sidewalk.
No unfinished business? No public input? New business? Commissioners' matters.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Behind the office of Remax, the one on 512, there's been a house out there for I don't know how long, maybe over 10 years, vacant. And I don't know how many times they've, I think it's 962 Barber Street. Do we know anything about that? Can we, I mean, it must have a whole bunch of liens on that, maybe. Because it's kind of like,
932.
it's right behind our office. I'm trying to look here, go 932, correct.
Yeah, I'm working with code enforcement on 932, and we're requesting on July 30th, we're requesting a special magistrate office.
Exactly.
So that would be moving forward, because yes, that property's been vacant for some time.
Over 10 years, I think.
That is owned by a defunct corporation, and the corporation hasn't even been active for at least 10 years. Although the owner of that corporation lives in Palm Bay, so we do have a good address. Serve him on, but he will be getting notice probably within the next 60 days.
Oh, yeah, because that's really an eyesore right in the center of the city, you know, so I just thought I'd bring it up.
Then we're going to make some recommendations to council on what to do with it. We'll probably look for either that home organization.
Yeah, something, sure.
Or Habitat for Humanity or something like that to turn it over to. But
Sure.
We'll be working with council on that recommendation in the future.
Thank you, appreciate that. That's it.
I have a question of staff, and it's relative to the project we talked about, and that is, if this, when the developmental agreement is put together, there is nothing that would prevent the current property owner to sell it, and when they do, negotiate reimbursement on that portion of the sidewalk that would be constructed, correct?
Right.
I mean, that would be up to them.
Yeah, and that's actually what we were saying as you guys were voting, is that we're going to have to come up with some conditional language, because there's so many possibilities. You know, they could either Strunk could develop it, or they could sever it and sell it, and then if they do, is the buyer going to be responsible for the whole length? Is there going to have to be some sort of you know, cash remuneration there or whatever? So we're going to have to come up with probably several contingents, you know, if A, then B, if, you know, and so far. So we'll come up with something.
I'll buy you a chocolate cupcake when you do that, okay?
Well, the nice thing about it is if we get it all down and it's recorded, then anyone who comes to buy that parcel would be put on notice. Let's say it was going to fall to their responsibility to put the sidewalk over the full length, then they would know that going in, because the title report would pick up on it. So, you know, it wouldn't be anything hidden from them. So at that point, obviously, that would factor into whatever purchase price or deal was arranged. So, which would be all beyond anybody here involvement. But the requirements would be a matter of something that's recorded and attached to the property. So.
Attorney Stokes, I want to say that cupcake wasn't a bribe. It was a thank you for bailing me out, okay?
Got that on the record, is that it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I guess I'll make my little comment. I think that we really should come up with a sidewalk plan. And I'm not thinking that every side street needs to have a sidewalk, but we certainly do need them on main arterials. And we should have a plan, and we should probably have some standards, and do that in your spare time.
We do have sidewalk standards. They're DOT sidewalk standards. In addition, we have just completed the US 1 corridor improvement study with the DOT, and they have already identified our sidewalk gaps. That gets us possibly a little closer to possibly getting funding from DOT to do these sidewalks. And in addition, the city council requested that the CDBG funding that we should be able to get starting October 1st would address some sidewalk gaps on North Central Avenue. So that's what's been happening with our sidewalks so far. So we hear you. We know that pedestrian safety, I mean, dangers by design, Florida is still one of the top.
Yes.
Yes. But I don't like
I think it's 20, I think that the news came out, it's 29th.
Did I say that for the record? Okay, sorry.
The state of Florida is 29th. Most dangerous state. Okay. Mr. Monty, any issues?
No comments. No.
No?
No comments.
No? Okay. Attorney's matters.
Nothing in addition, ma'am.
Staff matters.
Yes, ma'am. We wanted to inform you that in accordance with the City Council's wishes expressed last night, we will be postponing the postponing the future land use discussion for the proposed annexation next week. Now, because it has already been advertised in the newspaper as occurring next week, and it is a public hearing, we have to keep it on the agenda. You will have to open the public hearing and then table it to a time certain. So, that's going to have to be the way we process this at next week's meeting. And we'll put it first on the agenda before the AT&T site plan. And with the tabling process, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Stokes, you do need to table it for a time certain. And since we do not know what that time certain will be, we know that this board is going to be meeting on April 15th. So, because you will be, I'm sorry, April. Yeah, next April. You're wrapping up until next April. I'm sorry. August 15th, because you will be looking at the CIP for the budget. at that time. So what we're recommending is that you table it until then in order to determine when it will be heard. And in the interim, we'll be having meetings with the county and with staff to give you a little bit more directive at the August 15th meeting, so that you'll be able to open it and say, we're going to hold the public hearing on X date. Does that make sense? That is why we have to go through this process. We've already advertised it for, next week, and so we'll have to keep it on the agenda and open it. But please, if you have anyone who contacts you, please let them know it will not be heard at next week's meeting. We will not be bringing it at the desire of the city council at last night's meeting.
So that would be only one thing on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
So we should bring a cupcake then?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there'll be 2 items on the agenda, and also, so you know, so there won't be any backup for that comprehensive plan at this point. If you did want to kind of start reviewing probably the information that will eventually get to you, it's the same information that City Council was given at their first reading of the annexation. So if you go to our city website, go to the public records search, it was that June 26th meeting, and there was the analysis and everything that was presented to them for their consideration at their first reading, which will be pretty much the same information, the maps and everything that you will get at your hearing. It just won't be next week, so you won't have any backup for that when you get your agenda packet tomorrow.
Is this the one that the city council wanted to approve the annexation on?
That's correct. They approved us moving forward with consideration of the annexation, and they will be hearing the public hearing and the second reading of that ordinance still on August 28th. However, the city council prefers to step back a little and with the future land use at this time. And so that is why they've requested that we not consider it at this time. But they still are considering the annexation on August 28th.
We all have our opinions.
Well, I just want to make you all aware of how we're going to be moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I believe that this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you so much.
Yep.